Hello, it's World Sleep Day, and welcome to Plate Stack Chat. Now, we all know how important it is to sleep for health and fitness, just like exercise and nutrition, and yet it seems to be a big problem for a lot of people. What is behind the sleep crisis we're facing, and what effect is it having on us? And on a personal level, what can we do to master our sleep? Well, today's guest is going to help us with that. Now, quickly, before I bring out our guest, a quick thank you to our sponsor, Strivey. Maybe they can help you to sleep a little better, knowing that you have a great solution for your online programming. So today's guest is a sleep clinician at ResMed's London Sleep Clinic with experience working with both the National Health Service and private health sector. He is on a mission to help you get better sleep despite the many distractions of this modern world. Please welcome Josh Piper.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Josh. Good afternoon, Craig, here in the chat. If it is afternoon, I can't remember where you're based. It might be very early. Josh, welcome. I've got to bring this up immediately, even though I did ask you and you told me it was a long time ago. But I was, doing the tiny bit of research I do for intros, which is where my research begins and ends usually. And I found that I saw the university you'd gone to, and I've seen the different experience you've had in the world of sleep. Wonderful. That makes me feel that you are an expert on sleep. But I also saw back in the early days, you also did a bit of PTing as well.
I did, yeah. As I mentioned, not to any good degree. Certainly, if you saw me now, you wouldn't say he's a PT. But yes, I did.
Well, I don't know, because I just wondered if there was like a correlation between, because I always feel like if someone's doing PTing, they're interested in people's health. They're interested in like trying to help people improve, get better. And then you've obviously specialized in sleep as kind of this. I mean, looking through your sort of CV, it's been a lot of sleep focus in different areas.
Yeah.
And I was curious if that immediately your go-to on sleep was like, this is a big piece of the puzzle that is missing in a lot of people's, it's a bit like how you can't outwork a bad diet. Was
Yes,
there that kind of idea of, yeah, you can be in the gym 24 hours a day, but if you're not getting any time to sleep, how healthy are you going to be?
Honestly, it's exactly that. And you do see, particularly with, and I obviously won't mention any names, but certainly other podcasters and influencers out there, they will be very, very heavy on doing physical activity. Again, I'm very pro or for it, but they'll do it at the detriment of getting sleep. And the problem that you find is if you don't get sleep, you get all of these inflammatory markers start coming up in the body, which means you're not going to be doing your best work in the gym the next day.
Yes. I feel like I'm painfully aware of that. I mean, I love doing this show, but one of the problems of, I guess, the global sort of media world we live in now is that I'm often juggling time zones. And one of the most convenient times to kind of juggle a time zone and when my children are asleep and things like that tends to be later in the evening, and sometimes very late in the evening / early morning. So that's I'm aware.
I think it's, and I've always said this, I think it's really important that we're not puritanical about sleep. People are going to have their barriers. And ResMed, for instance, who I work for now, have done a bit of research and found that there are plenty of barriers across 30,000 odd people. And yes, some of them, it can be kids, it can be a working life, it could be social life, it could be popping to the gym. Any of those things, you've got to work around. I'm not going to be able to tell you, right, well, your kids need to be in bed by 7 p.m. so that you can be in bed by 9 p.m. because it's probably not going to work for you. So we have to be malleable.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy for you to tell me that, and then I've got it recorded and I can play it to my kids at night and be like, look, it's not my fault. Josh said this. He's an expert. So okay,
I'll give you a little record later, and you can give it to them.
Brilliant. Yes. So one other thing then, and then we'll get on to like the crisis and all of that is, I have a lot of high level athletes that come on this show and chat and talk, and it often comes to my training and I talk about the fact that for me, due to life, I found the convenient time to go into the gym was at 8 p.m. and that's sort of the class that I do. now a lot of them sort of say oh, I couldn't do that. Like I'd be too wired, and then I would struggle getting to sleep. So I don't find that to be the case. In that I don't think I am like struggling to. If anything, I'm tired because I've just done a workout.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because I know with other things, I know with things like alcohol and caffeine and things like that, they say like, yeah, you might actually, physically be asleep, but it's not good quality sleep because you're still stimulated. Is that the same with exercise? Like, am I going to be overly stimulated and struggling to sleep because I've
So,
done that?
as always, it's a really nuanced argument in sleep. And so realistically, if you're doing something fairly hefty, quite close to bedtime, you are going to be raising your body temperature. It's what most people realistically are aiming for when they try and do some physical activity. Now, what we want to naturally do as we want to sleep is drop our body temperature. So by doing the opposite, okay, yes, you might be able to get yourself off to sleep because you might actually be suffering from sleep debt anyway. The ability to dive into some of those nice deep stages of sleep where we really drop our core body temperature, that could be affected.
Right. So is it a case of cold plunging before I go to bed? Because
No, no, no,
I
no.
also hate being cold. I mean, I'm not a cold plunger. I don't even like cold showers. I hate being cold, really.
Two extremes. You don't want to be too hot, we don't want to be too cold. You want the middle porridge. Okay,
Okay,
that's what we're looking
right.
for.
The
And
Goldilocks
one of
zone it is. Wonderful.
exactly that.
But first of all, I didn't know it was World Sleep Day until I got informed.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. And then quick Google, I realized it is a thing, and everyone's talking about it, and it's a global thing. So that's good for you. I mean, that's what a nice convenient day to turn up for you as a sleep expert.
Yeah, almost as if it wasn't planned or anything. But it's yeah, it's really a case of World Sleep Day, as much as any campaign, is about awareness, and it's an awareness about a multitude of factors within sleep itself. Even if you were to go, your listeners and your watchers can do this. If you go on Google Trends, for instance, and type in the word sleep and look back from 2004, which is as far back as it will go, all you see is just an upwards trend all the way up. And that just shows that people are becoming more aware. They are starting to prioritize it as they should. It's just about educating people now about what perhaps the myths are, the things to believe, the things not to believe.
So that's interesting because so like searching for sleep is
Yeah.
going up. So
Yeah.
the awareness is there. Is that awareness correlating with an improvement in the situation? Like, oh, okay, now we all know about it. Oh, we just didn't know. Now we know. Problem solved. Or despite the fact that the awareness has gone up, are you seeing an improvement across the board? Or are you actually seeing people are struggling more to get
So
good sleep? And if so, what's sort of the knock-on effect that's having for health in general?
the short answer is no, it's not really improving. If we look worldwide and we look at the amount of people that we assume have a sleep complaint or disorder, we're looking at 2 billion.
Right.
For your listeners' perspective, more people have a sleep disorder than own an iPhone.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So it's a
It's
widespread thing.
interesting because I would correlate potentially owning an iPhone to being why you have a sleep disorder. So
I know what you mean, yeah. And I was going to say, particularly if you look at the trends itself as to when people search for sleep, when do you think they tend to search it?
right, it's at night. It's when they should be
At
asleep.
night. Brilliant. Yep, one. And a particular time of the year.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Oh, when do you want to sleep the
When
most of the
might
year?
people join
Is it like
gyms?
is it like okay, new year, new me, sleep. That's it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna sort it
Exactly.
in January. Right.
Yeah, exactly that. So
Oh, okay.
there's real patterns to this, and yes, okay, we are becoming more aware, but that awareness might actually be down to the prevalence of it as well. And there's a bit of a reciprocal relationship going on there. As you become more aware, it becomes more prevalent. Is that because of a reporting bias? Maybe. But also, it's a good thing. It's getting the name of sleep out there. And obviously, we can break that down into various different aspects of disorders, lifestyle, well-being, those sorts of things.
So why is it getting worse? I mean, I get or yeah, why is it getting worse? I guess that's the first question. Like, you've done research on this, you've sort of looked into the weeds of the topic. Again, especially if people know they need to improve their sleep, like what are the major causes? I mean, I've mentioned children and the gym, but like what are the reasons that people just are not sleeping?
Well, certainly children have always been there, so that in
Yeah,
its
that's
own
not new.
reason. Yeah, yeah. And they're their own little disruptor. But what I would say is that it depends which part of sleep you look at. So if we look at, for instance, obstructive sleep apnea as an example, yes, that's on the rise. That might be because we're also seeing an increase in prevalence of obesity worldwide. And so as we increase in weight, more weight tends to be around up here near the upper airway, which for yourselves out there, if all of a sudden you've got a weight that you're holding, you're trying to bench press, and someone adds more to it, all of a sudden that's going to block that airway. And so more obesity lends itself to increased risk of obstructive sleep apnea.
Oh wow. Okay. I mean,
And that's just one.
yeah, but that's a really interesting one.
Oh yeah.
That is an interesting one. Because years ago, maybe in the first couple of years when I just joined CrossFit Bath, we had there was a like a nutrition seminar, but within that, they were talking about kind of a tripod of fitness and these three legs of a stool or that kind of idea. And it was what we're doing in the gym and our training, it was our nutrition, and it was sleep. And it is the way they all work together. So like, obviously, if your nutrition is on point and you're working out in the gym, you are going to lose weight. Like that's you are going to like, you might gain muscle mass. Great. I'm imagining muscle isn't sliding up and choking you during the night though, in the same way.
No.
The same way more weight there could be. So it's just always interesting how these things, they all work together. Like just you need to
Absolutely.
it's not like, oh, okay, I need to improve my sleep, so I'm just going to attack sleep like unilaterally. That's the thing. But again, if I'm, what I'm doing in the gym, what I'm eating, and working on my sleep, those things are going to have a knock-on effect.
Yeah,
So,
it is, and you're right when you talk about sort of the tripod. It is a pillar, and nutrition and fitness or physical activity itself has had a PR day, if you like, or a few years. Sleep is just starting to be dragged into the limelight, albeit bad pun, shouldn't be.
yeah.
That's now what people perhaps are giving a little bit of focus to, and I'm obviously really pleased because then it means it has an effect on what you can do in the gym and your nutrition itself as well.
Do you think then I guess the problem for sleep is that you need a certain amount of time uninterrupted to get that sleep that you need to buy up from doing other things. And it feels like, particularly in the social media world and, influencers and the grind and the hustle, it's like, oh, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. so I can hit my workout, and then I can do this, and then I'm doing business calls, and then I'm advertising this, promoting that. Whereas no one is posting like, and then I'm getting to bed at 7 in the afternoon and 7 in the evening, and I'm getting a good 8 hours, 9 hours of uninterrupted. It's like, no, there's no time to sleep. You've got to be working. And that's obviously then, killing any opportunity you have to sleep. And then everybody that's being influenced by the influencers are like, oh, that's what I need to be doing. I need to have that grind mindset and just work and put, work 9 to 5 for my job, then my side hustle, then time with the friends and all of it. And it seems to be, well, what's the thing that I can go to bed an hour later. I can get up an hour earlier. That seems the solution, I guess.
Nail on the head with regards to people seeing and it's the same in any walk of social media, to be honest with you. Everything always looks brilliant and perfect when people show you what they want you to see. But realistically, okay, that might work for one person. Sleep is so individualistic that you necessarily trying to go to bed at 10 and waking up at 4, so 6 hours in overall there, that might not work for you, not only in terms of duration albeit maybe by the sounds of things, 6 hours you would take and run by now. It's a case of it also might not work with your internal rhythm.
Right.
So people have their own body clock, I'm sure you're more than well aware of, and your listeners as well. And we all have a kind of individual rhythm going on. Tends to be to do with the dark light cycle. And if there was one thing that I was gonna say, right, go and do this in order to promote better sleep, it's daylight.
Right.
People always talk about getting a fixed bedtime. One of the best things you can do is have a fixed wake up time. And that does mean every day. It doesn't mean Monday to Friday and do what you want on Saturdays and Sundays. And it's because our brain just loves patterns.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think that's the one. I was about to say that's the one benefit to having children. That's not what I meant. But as much as children disrupt your sleep, like my daughter is up at, well, this morning she's up at 5:40, but she's up about 6 every day anyway. And we have friends when we've had stuff booked in at the weekend, and they're like, "Oh, but it's the weekend, 10 o'clock," and I'm saying, like, if it's at 10 o'clock, I've been up for hours at that point because my kids do not care that it's the weekend. My son is almost a teenager. That's changing a little bit. He's getting a little bit harder to rouse in the morning, but my daughter is still like up super early. So I generally have my alarm is set for 6 most mornings anyway because of work. But even at the weekend, even when I don't have an alarm, I generally wake up.
You do have an alarm. It just comes in a small format. Yeah.
Yeah. And my wife is not a morning person, so I deal with a lot of I'm up, I'm downstairs, I'm in the kitchen. That's what's happening. But I get that. Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't even feel like I need to lie in. So actually, I get almost frustrated if I lie in at the weekend because I feel like that's wasted time. Especially if I've woken up and then tried to like force myself to go back to sleep and have a lie-in. But it seems to be so kind of culturally ingrained that we've got to get a lie-in on the weekend, or like I've been on holiday with extended family, big family holidays, and we're up super early and they're still in bed, and I'm like, we're burning daylight, we're wasting time.
And in actual fact, why that is you tend to find this, again, it's a really good experiment for people listening can do to find their own sleep requirement, if you like, is next time you do go pop away on a holiday, and hopefully there's no distractions, no alarms, you don't need to get up. The first 2-3 mornings, you're going to wake up at wildly different times. As you progress into days 4, 5, 6, you'll start finding that you'll wake up at a very similar time every morning, providing the bedtime is similar as well, of course. And at that point, you can count back to when you went to bed, and that is your rough sleep requirement, your personal sleep requirement. So it's just a nice, easy one to do. Most people will sit in the 7 to 9 hour range, where most people are. But it doesn't mean that that's definitely what you'll need.
So if anyone is looking for an excuse to go on holiday for a week, explain that it is a sleep experiment that you must do to better your health and your future. Okay, I will try that. I don't know how, but that's
and as I say, this is where I say the individual moments comes in. You can't tell people that they're going to go to bed at a certain time because there's going to be things in the way. And what I will say for your listeners, you actually mentioned your teenager there is stepping into the teen era, if you like.
Yes.
And what we see with teenagers is actually, talked about that natural body rhythm, we see a shift. So they actually naturally want to go to bed later and wake up later. But we as a society are telling them they're lazy little buggers. And that in actual fact, they should be waking up when we do. We're actually depriving them of their natural rhythm, the sleep requirement they need, which then, when they start going into school, they're not going to have the concentration levels, the short-term to long-term memory consolidation, because we've taken it from them.
Which, I mean, I'd be fine to let him sleep in. Unfortunately, he's got to get to school. And that's the problem, right? So it's everything around us that is sort of dictating. I mean, I was having this thought the other day about how nobody wants to work on Saturday. Nobody wants to work in the night, but we all expect to be able to get 24-hour service at things that we want. And we expect that if I go out on a Saturday, I should be able to go somewhere and buy a coffee, and I should be able to go to some shops and all of that. And it's like we've built up this society of, well, these are very inhospitable hours that we need people to be working and doing things. I don't want to do it. And actually, my body doesn't really want to do it, and they don't want to do it. But because I also demand it, someone has to do it. It's this weird dichotomy of kind of, or
And
almost
there
disassociation.
there is the disparity between what people's expectations are and what we get. And we, in actual fact, to sort of mention the survey that ResMed did, even though people were getting the right amount of sleep, technically speaking, on average, most of those people reported that it wasn't enough, or they didn't feel that there was the quality of sleep. So there's a second part to it as well. Time, yes, absolutely. People are struggling for that. But even when they get time, it's not the right quality of sleep.
That is something I worry about. is that, like, I get to sleep. I mean, I'm going to tell you something I do now, and you
Please
are going
do.
to hate it. This is going to drive you crazy, but I really struggle to switch off my brain. Like, I really struggle. So at night is almost one of the worst times, because when I'm lying in bed, I am, like every thought in my head is like, oh, I've got to do this tomorrow. Oh, I should have done that. And like, even if I'm kind of watching a movie, I'm still in the back of my mind thinking about other things. It's the thing I love about CrossFit is when I go in and we do the workout, it's sort of the only time where I'm not thinking about anything else. I am just thinking about surviving this workout. Like that's what's kept me going for years. And like today I did the open workout, and 100% it was just, how many more of these reps do I need to do before this is over? So I get that. So at night, sometimes I can't sleep. And something I found that does put me to sleep physically, but is probably really, really bad for me, is as people, quite spot, a bit of an anime fan, things like that. I have found putting on an anime with the subtitles, so it's the Japanese voices, and so any that are coming out that are subtitle only, I'm like, I'll save those for the night. And it's kind of like I'm reading, and then I'm not, and then I'm asleep. Which I means I'm staring at a screen to go to sleep, which I know is not a good thing to be doing.
So, with that, and don't get me wrong, that's not the worst thing I've heard. I speak to lots of patients, lots of clients on a regular basis. Firstly, you're not alone in terms of those kind of dysfunctional thoughts coming at night. And usually it's because it's the only time people have had the opportunity to slow down and start thinking about things. Problem is, of course, we're doing that at a time where the options in bed should be sleep or sex. And the brain, if it doesn't get one of those, knows it's the other one. Yeah. And so there's a prompt there and a pattern there. I won't go too much into that because I saw your face. But essentially, when we start introducing,
I told you that. So
yeah, exactly. So you've had at least two opportunities. So realistically, it's about reducing the other options for most people. So if you've got something like a TV, or you're doom scrolling of a nighttime, you're making your bedroom this multi-option area. And so the brain, okay, if it doesn't get sleep, it doesn't get sex, it goes, oh, well, I've got watching anime, I've got scrolling on my phone, which are waking actions. It's not so much the blue light, which is what we're all told initially. There's a nice bit of research in Australia not so long ago. In actual fact, it's the activity itself, the waking activity, that is the problem. And blue light comes into it, absolutely, but not as much as we thought.
Well, that's an important, like, on the surface, that probably means nothing to some people. Like, well, okay, it's this, it's A instead of B. Great. It could be B instead of A. But justification of like, oh, but I put the, the blue light sensor thing on the phone, or I put the, do you know what I mean? So I'm not getting actually the blue light, and so I can scroll all night because I'm not getting the blue light. And it's like, well, actually, no.
Yeah.
If it's not the blue light, it's the scroll. I mean, my wife told me the other day, I didn't even know she does this. I know she's on her phone in the evening, like when she can't sleep, and And she told me that, and I thought she was like on Instagram, scrolling on Instagram, because she does that from time to time. And she said no, because that does keep her awake. That's sort of engaged. She's engaged in that. She's like window shopping basically on her phone. She goes to the different websites where she buys stuff, and she's like, like on Amazon scrolling through certain things, or Temu or something like that. And she said, "Oh, and it makes me really sleepy, and I fall asleep." So we've got problems. We need to
But
solve.
it's cues, isn't it, really? And props that we would otherwise see. So, for instance, for some people's children, the prop becomes driving them round the block. And that becomes the prop for the kid to fall asleep, because guess what? They're associating the car with sleep. So it's associations that we tend to do. Don't get me wrong. As I say, I'm not here to be puritanical about it. I'm not going to take people's TV or their anime away. If it helps you get to sleep and it's not disrupting you too much, why would I take that away? It's more about, as best you can, creating this sleep haven, if you like, where as soon as you enter that room, your brain is recognizing, okay, this is a place for sleep. It's not a place to think about what's gone on during the day. Because what we find is, as you are drifting and not fully asleep yet, the emotional regulator of the brain starts to actually shut down first. So all of those thoughts that you're having are now not emotionally regulated, and so they go to worst possible scenarios. So often what I'll get people to do, if they know they're a dysfunctional thinker of a nighttime and they start to think about it, and don't get me wrong, this isn't easy. If you can't get to sleep and you're thinking, take yourself to another room. Let yourself think about it. Absolutely fine. You can go through as many thoughts as you like. You can write them down, do what you want. Do not let the bedroom become the place where you do that, because again, it's associating it. This room is a place to think about bad things.
Right. That's it. Oh, okay. That's an interesting. I've never heard that one before. So that's it. That is interesting. I was gonna say I'm jotting it down. I don't need to. This is being recorded. But that is interesting. Okay, I'll have to try that. Because I do think a lot, yeah, the idea of, I have to basically restructure my whole house. I think it's the problem is that the bedroom becomes a kind of catch-all for hiding away and doing stuff and doing work and that. But yeah, the idea that it's So here's, I mean, this could be a controversial one, because classically the thing to do in bed is read. People go to bed and they read a book for and this is one of the problems I've got with my kids at the moment. Is we stopped screen time at 6 o'clock. We're like, screens off at 6, and then when it's like time for them to go to bed, they go to bed and they read. And I have gone into their room like 2 hours later from when we put them, so not at not 6 go to bed, but like they've gone up to bed 7:30, 8 o'clock. I've come up at 10 and found my daughter is still in her room reading her book, because she's so engaged in this book. I mean, I physically can't do that. I find reading, I love reading, but I find it's one of the things that when I'm tired and I'm reading, I am that person that sort of starts dropping the book, like, and you wait. If everyone's ever done that, they know what that feeling is, where you're holding a book, you fall asleep on a train, and like you catch the book. That's me. But is reading like reading before bed? I mean, I think about my grandparents reading before bed, like always having a book on the bedside table. But is honestly that not a great thing to be doing then?
It's fine.
It's fine. Okay.
Reading's absolutely fine. What you want is, you want it to be enough that obviously you're interested in actually picking that book up.
Right.
But you don't want it to be something that you're reading 2 hours later.
Yeah.
So someone's biography will normally do the job. Yes. Not that your kids are going to be reading that. Oh, you never know.
Yeah. Well, because that's funny, because I always tell my wife she should read before bed, like, because instead of scrolling on her phone and doing that, I'm always like, you need to read. But she doesn't love reading, but if she finds a book with a good hook, she has to read, like she has to finish it. Yeah. And there have been times that I used to work years ago. I used to live in Venice. I used to work in a hotel, and quite often, people would bring books in that they'd kind of, and then they would leave books behind. So I'd go, there's a new book to read. Okay, I'll take that home. And if it was something really interesting, she would like, that would be gone from my bedside table, that would be on her bedside table, and I would not get that back until she had finished it.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of why she won't read, because if it's boring, she doesn't care, and if it's engaging, it's too engaging. And like
Yeah.
she's also, it's the same with TV shows. This kind of binge culture of like them dropping whole seasons at once is a nightmare for us, because if they do that, she will sit and watch the whole thing. And if they don't do that and they have one episode and I say, well, the next episode's out next week, that is, I now have a week long issue where she is
Absolutely.
not happy about that.
Yeah. So at that point, if you're one of those people, and your wife included by the sounds of things, and my wife included, I'd like to point out, where when you start reading a book, it's because the book is good and you can't put it down. At that point, no, I wouldn't suggest reading in the bedroom, because it
Right.
becomes something that you're really engaged in. One of the things, for instance, that I ask people to do if they have sometimes got this kind of running mind or running thoughts is do something or think about something that isn't overly engaging. And I'm not going to go down the mindfulness route and say you need to think of a river and leaves
Right.
or anything like that. It can be something simple like going from A to Z, and you need to name an animal in your head that starts with that letter. It's engaging enough that you'll try to get there, but not many people go all the way there and do it again,
Yeah.
because it's better than counting sheep, put it that way.
Yeah. I have heard that. I have tried that. I've done
Yeah,
that one, and I've done a similar where it was like pick a letter and then
yeah,
name as many things as you can beginning
yeah.
with that letter.
Really simple things.
Yeah, so I have tried those, but I try those things. I do them for a couple of days and then I forget. But I guess the idea with like the reading, and I mean, it could even be, that it's kind of maybe the building that sleep ritual, right? So it's like
Mm.
if reading is I go in, I read 10 pages and then I fall asleep. And so this is the room where I go in, I read 10 pages and I fall asleep. It's the same as this is the room I go in and I sleep. Like it's just an extra step, but it is,
Huge.
and I
Yeah,
have my, my cup of, green tea, or not green tea, that's got caffeine in or whatever, is like a chamomile tea. Got my little cup of this and I drink that and I read my 10 pages and then it's all kind of becomes your sleep ritual and you're like, bang, I'm asleep. Okay. I know we don't have much time, but
okay.
any other tips then? Let's make this as practical as we can. What so apparently I need to revamp my whole room, which is going to be a problem. But beyond that, what are some of like the, if there are, I guess the smaller adjustments that can have the biggest impact on people,
I
those kind
think,
of
as I
things.
say, routine's the biggest one. So we tend to refer to things as Zeitgebers, which is German for time givers,
Right.
basically. Biggest one, light. So if you can, and this is always the big if, when you wake up, you want nice exposure to sunlight. Now, if you can't get that, it might be that you go and get yourself a daylight lamp or something
Right.
like that, because that is your natural reset for its sort of master clock in the brain, okay, called your suprachiasmatic nucleus. Nobody needs to search that. The little ball of cells that controls most of the other ones. So light gives that a good reset. It will be things like not eating big meals too close to bed. You can have like a small snack, like some nuts, some walnuts, something like that. Um, Not doing particularly strenuous exercise too close to bed, because we don't
Right.
want to raise that body temperature up too much, but only if it's a problem. And this is where sleep comes in for people. It only becomes a problem if you think it's a problem. So if you feel like, oh, I always struggle to get to sleep after doing a workout, but it's probably because your body temperature is way up. Or I wake up after an hour or so of falling asleep after a workout, it's because your body temperature is up. You don't have to go and buy blackout blinds. They're expensive. Something like an eye mask would be really, really simple. But I would say importantly as well to touch on is all of these are very lifestyle focused. Um, if anybody has or does all of this already and they think I sleep the right periods of time, I do all the right things, but I still wake up feeling rubbish. At that point, we need to start looking at what's happening when you're asleep. And that, as I say, leads you into things that I mentioned earlier, like obstructive sleep apnea is a possibility. And you don't have to be overweight. I mentioned it as a risk factor. You can look like yourself, trim, do loads of exercise, eat really, really well, but guess what? You can still have it. So it's important that if you are, waking up regularly in the night, if you need to pop to a loo, if you're reported as a snorer, and you're waking up and you feel shattered through the day and you're falling asleep at your programs up at the end of the day, get checked. Go to a GP.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think again, people love data, don't they? So it's like you've got all your fitness trackers, your watches, things like that now that are kind of to a degree monitoring, how much you're moving in your sleep and how restful your sleep is and stuff. And I also think, again, with like within the CrossFit world and the fitness world, we generally become more in tune. I mean, I noticed this in the years I've been knowing, you just become a little bit more in tune with your body. Like, when you're not feeling great, and then maybe the next day you've got a cold or something, and you're like, okay, I've really kind of felt that coming on. So yeah, okay. So I think that'd be a good thing. At the moment, I can't do it because I know there's so many problems before. So I need to clean up those things and then be like, right, now it's working. Uh-oh.
And what I will touch on very quickly, just because you mentioned wearables, is there is a thing out there called orthosomnia. No. I'm very pro wearable.
Okay.
But people can strive for perfect sleep.
Right.
And their app might tell them that they're only getting 12% deep sleep. Don't focus on what that is telling you. It's good for trends and looking at patterns on an individual night-to-night basis. If you wake up feeling great, don't let your wearable tell you that you're not. Because people do.
I know. I mean, I think that's great though. It's like, oh, I feel amazing, and then, oh no, apparently I don't. Okay.
Exactly.
I guess I'm not. Back to bed it is. I guess that's been a very positive. There's lots of good things there. I guess the final thing then is if we don't make these changes, if people in general don't, if we just keep, what is kind of the, not worst case, but like what, if things don't change at the moment? We said the trend is people are looking for sleep, but the trend is also so many distractions, so much going on that they're not getting the sleep. Is that so bad? What will be the result if things continue like this?
So poor sleep in general, and not narrowing it down to any particular one in terms of disorder, leads to an increased risk of pretty much everything you can think of risk-wise. Cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, cancers, all cause mortality. If you have poor sleep, we have shown there is a direct correlation between poor sleep and earlier mortality.
All right. Are people seeing that when they're doing the searches, when they're looking for tips on falling asleep? I guess, is that an awareness that's there? Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's not helping them sleep, but I
think often the primary concern for people is the here and now when they're searching for sleep. It's I can't sleep. Why can't I? These sorts of things. They're not thinking, oh, if I don't sleep tonight, am I going to develop cardiovascular disease in 25 years? No, of course you're not. We can all have one bad night. But usually it's those singular bad nights, and the acute problem is where people search for something. If people are worried about their overall sleep, they can always go and visit something like ResMed's website where they've got a sleep assessment on there. It's a quick and easy thing. Can always do something like that.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I just wonder if maybe that's the other piece of the puzzle, is that you've got people that are like, I need to sleep more, and they're already searching, and then you've got people that are like, do I need to? I think I'm fine. I function on 7 coffees, and I function. It's fine. It's just, no, Heidi, he's already mentioned that he's married. Sorry.
Yeah. But yes and no. It's important that people understand the risk, but also at the same time, I can't scare someone into sleep.
No.
And I don't want to.
I don't think that will work as well. I think that will be the dark thoughts they have at night when they're trying to get to sleep.
Exactly. It's really a case of making sure that people understand it and are aware of the problem, so that if they notice issues, they go and get it fixed or get help. But not so much that they're laying there at night thinking, oh, if I don't sleep, I might die tomorrow, because that's not going to happen. But that's where dysfunctional thoughts can take you.
Yeah. which you've said at night is when you have them, and when
Oh yes.
you're not reasoning emotionally. I mean, that was interesting. I didn't know that, so that was quite fascinating, because I think I'm a bit of a worst case scenario type person anyway. So knowing that apparently at night that's actually worse is making a lot of sense. I'm looking
Yeah.
back on the last 30 odd years and going, oh, okay, yeah.
Give yourself a break,
I'm seeing a
basically.
pattern emerge here.
It's not you, it's your brain.
Oh well, fine. That's pretty broken anyway, so no problem. Wonderful. Well, just there's been some great tips there. I am going to have to actually. I don't really like watching these back or listening back to them because I'm on them, but I will. Heidi says she always wakes up at 3 a.m. Is that good? I mean, you said routine is good. If you always wake up at the same time, that's good.
So it really depends if that then becomes a problem falling back to sleep. And I'll be very quick because I appreciate, obviously, we've got to go. But if you're able to get back to sleep after waking up at 3 a.m. and you don't see it as a problem, you don't see mal effects the next day, that's okay. If it's that you wake up at 3 a.m., you stay awake, and then you feel it affects the next day, at that point, I would be going to seek out some help from a primary physician.
Yeah. Not on purpose. I want to sleep until 5 a.m. Yeah, but maybe your body says, you know what, Heidi, you're an elite functioning machine. You only 3 a.m. and you're ready to go. You're fully charged.
I'm
Ready to go and
unlikely
crash
at
it up
3
at
a.m.,
work.
I will say, but you never know.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Josh, for your time. This has been very informative for me. There are a lot of tips I'm going to try. Apparently, some changes I need to make in my life. And I'm going to make sure both my wife and children watch this.
Fantastic.
Because I think there's some important things that they need to learn as well. I says, thank you, Josh. Yeah.
No problem at all.
Oh, and everyone is saying it. Clearly, people are waking up in America at this time. So, I guess, apart from Heidi, she's been up since 3, apparently. Wonderful. Well, if you're just joining us now, go back and watch from the start. Josh is a sleep expert. He's given us a lot of interesting facts and information about some of the problems that sleep, because or lack of sleep is bringing, how people are desperate to find more sleep, but also some quite practical tips for sleep as well that I will benefit from. You didn't get a notification. That's not my problem, Augustus. I don't know why you didn't get a notification. But if you missed this, but you're like, oh man, I wish there was another show. Well, on Sunday, I will be back 4 p.m. in the UK. You can work out what time that is, everybody else, with Julia Cato. She'll be joining me. So thank you again for your time, Josh. Thank you, everybody. And hopefully see some of you on